Today, we're going to chat with Primoz, who is in the middle of his journey to creating his ultimate life. Welcome to Richer Soul, your journey to a more purposeful, intentional, amazing life. Where are you going to go and how are you going to get there? Let's figure that out together. At the core is the financial well-being to be able to do what you want, when you want, how you want. It's about personal freedom and abundance. Are you creating the life you deserve? Please check out the Facebook page. It's facebook.com/richersoul. That's where I share interesting articles that I have read recently. Also, stop by the website, and if you can, there's a sign up on the right for the email list. I won't send very many emails, but when something exciting is happening, I will share it with you. And that's where I'll be sharing the ebook that's coming out later this year, and it's free to all my subscribers. My goal is to help you create a holistic journey to living a great life. That means we have to understand where we're going. What's our purpose? We also need to be healthy enough to be able to do what we want and have the time to be able to do so. Of course, we also need the financial means to live the life we choose. Living life alone gets kind of lonely, so creating strong relationships and being part of something bigger spiritually. We all know this, yet we're stuck overcoming those voices in our head that create the fear that holds us back from the life we deserve. Today, we'll explore these topics as it applies to Primoz's journey. Listen in to how he approaches his health, the effort he puts into his business, his mindsets and habits, and realize that overnight success has a lot of hard work behind it. Before we meet Primoz, I want to share a book I'm reading. It's called The Magic of Thinking Big, written by David Schwartz. I think it was written back in 1959, and yet it still applies today. There's a story in there of an entrepreneur having a conversation with David. And as they're watching a quiz show on TV, the contestant is answering all the questions correctly. The entrepreneur asks David, "How much do you think I would pay that guy?" His answer, the entrepreneur's, $300, because that's how much it would cost me to buy an encyclopedia. And then after further thought, he revised it down to $2, because that's how much an almanac cost, and that's about where most of his knowledge came from in the game show. How much less today with an iPhone and Google would that person be worth? And yet we still send kids to schools to memorize facts instead of figuring out how to solve problems, teaching them to dream of ideas and figure out how to make those dreams into a practical reality. That's what makes real money. Just look at Uber and Airbnb, the largest taxi and hotel service that owns neither cars or hotel rooms. The book also talks about how action overcomes fear, how a positive attitude and an openness to ideas pushes us forward. David talks about mindsets and words that remove obstacles and create possibilities. He talks about breaking up routines and asking more questions. We need to ask for help, cultivate ideas, and control the environment we are in. Negativity is everywhere, and we have the choice to remove it from our life. You have to create the person in you that others want to be around. You need to continually be persistent in your journey in spite of the defeats and problems you will encounter. They are all learning experiences. Today, we're going to see how our guest Primoz puts all this info into action in his life. Welcome to Richer Soul, Primoz. I'm excited about having you here today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, man. I'm excited to be here.
So let's start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your parents teach you about creating a successful life?
Okay, that's a good question. So some background. I do come from Slovenia. That's where I'm at right now. That's a country in Central Europe. It's between Central Europe and then, where Yugoslavia used to be, Eastern European countries. It's kind of like in between there. I was a very smart kid. I always did well at the things that were interesting to me, like in primary school. I did well at different tests in terms of maths and English and things like that I was interested in. Maybe I did a bit worse at the things that I wasn't interested in. History classes, things like that. In the beginning, I would get by when I didn't need to study, but as soon as I needed to start studying, I kind of started getting worse grades just because I wasn't interested in it. That wasn't fun. My parents are still alive, so my dad is a really well-known archaeologist. He has his PhD. My mom is just working at a bigger food company, and she's basically a manager of logistics there. And I do have an older sister who's 5 years older than me. So I'm 26. She's about 31 right now. And she's a microbiologist. So she went down the route of getting a full-time job. She works at a pharmacy. She works in a lab. That's what my family is like. Honestly, growing up, I didn't have a life where I'm not from a poor family. I'm not from a family where we would have to fight to get food or pay the bills or things like that. We had a decent apartment. It's not a luxurious apartment, but it's a nice apartment. We always had food on the table. We always had 1 or 2 cars at our house. I could always do the regular things, like we could go to the seaside every year and so on and so on. But there was no element of luxury or something like that, and we didn't have a ton of money. It's just my parents knew how to spend it consciously on the things that matter to them. So if you talk to my parents, a lot of them, they would probably say oh yeah, he had a great childhood, he had everything that he needed. Now that's not entirely true, because I did wish, I always wished I could do cool things like travel to the United States, or to not go to the seaside to Croatia 20 years in a row to exact same spot. I did want to have something more. I wanted us to have a nicer car, or I wanted us to have a nicer apartment. I always felt like I wanted something more, but at that time that just wasn't possible, which was fine. So as a kid in school, in the beginning I was just super smart, and the teachers loved me for that. But then I guess kind of later on, towards the end of primary school and then also in high school, people would probably say that I was a little bit problematic, and that I started getting angry and frustrated with the world, which is true, because for all of the time when I was growing up, I never liked doing things that I didn't want to do, or the things that I didn't think made any sense to me. To me, it didn't make much sense to study about biology and what kind of different cells we have in our bodies, because I just didn't care about it. And to me, it didn't make sense to have a test about history and to memorize the exact dates on which certain invasions happen and stuff like that. I'm does it matter if it happened 1 year earlier or later? I can probably just Google it or whatever. So when I was, when I had to learn about things that I wasn't good at or I wasn't interested in, that's when I would just, be a rebel and be hey, I'm just not going to do it. So I had a lot of problems because of that in school. Teachers got mad at me. I had to repeat my last year of high school because I started skipping school. I started avoiding tests, exams. I just didn't want to do the things that didn't make sense to me. But on the other hand, I had, whenever I was interested in something, I could just spend a lot of time on it. If I was really interested in playing a video game, I could easily play a video game for 15 hours a day. Or, later on when I started being interested in my online business, it was easy for me to spend time on that, and so on and so on and so on. But yeah, my childhood, one of the things that was difficult for me was just connecting with other people. Most of the kids in the school that I was going to in primary school, they were just basically from the same area as the school was. But I actually had to, drive there with a bus for 20 minutes. So it's probably a few miles. It's not that much, it's relatively close. And it wasn't a problem. I just had to go on a bus, to school and back. But the problem was that I could never really hang out with the kids afterwards, because I had to go to school and then I would have to take the bus home. So I didn't really have any people, I didn't have many friends growing up, because they would all be hanging out and I would just be at home. So that's how I started playing a lot of video games and doing that. And that's also what taught me how to, speak English relatively well, because all the video games that I did play were in English. But it was pretty bad for me, because then, if all that you do is, you go to school and then you skip school and then you play video games all day long, I wasn't really, living a very successful life or something like that. And in terms of what my parents taught me about living a successful life, I'm kind of actually realizing it now, and I'm actually learning nowadays more about living a successful life from them. than I would say, I learned when I was a kid or something like that. Because at that time I was just like, my way is the right way, your way is the wrong way. I didn't really, understand what they were trying to teach me. If they wanted to make me study about something that I didn't care about, I just never listened to them. So they didn't teach me that much in that aspect. But nowadays I'm realizing, that there is a lot that I can learn from my parents. Like my dad is really, he's really good at what he does, and he could talk about archaeology for hours and hours, and he's really good at it. He's, written books about it. He's had plenty, probably tens or even hundreds of speeches about it, all over Europe. He's doing a pretty good job with that. The problem is I'm just not interested in archaeology. I'm not interested in history. So we never really got along in that way because I was just sick and tired of him talking about it for 5 hours a day when I wasn't interested in it, right? But nowadays I'm learning it's he just has his own thing that he's really passionate about, that, he's really excited about. And of course he wants to talk about it for hours and hours. It's like me and online business. It's the exact same thing. So I'm realizing, how committed he actually is to work. I'm starting to understand what he does, how he does it. He also has this, he wants to strive for excellence. He wants things to be done really, really well. There's a lot of things that I'm learning from him. But I would say, when I was growing up, I didn't learn that much. Nowadays, I'm probably learning a lot more just because I'm more conscious, because I'm more aware, because I'm more open to actually, seeing what I can learn from other people rather than just thinking, it's my way or no other way.
And that's a shift in mindset that allows you to be open to receiving feedback and learning and doing that. And when you shift the way you approach it, it opens up the opportunities for a lot more to happen. So how did he deal with you not doing well in high school? That must have been a struggle.
Well, we got into a lot of fights. I mean, I don't know. It must have been tough for my parents, especially, they would say that I'm kind of the disgrace to the family. They weren't proud of me, especially when I started skipping school more and more and, just playing video games and not giving, not caring too much about the things that were important to them. It wasn't good for our relationship. We argued a lot. We fought a lot. They would take my computer away and then I would find another way to play my games and things like that. So that wasn't fun, definitely. I don't know how they dealt with it. I know they went to see some kind of psychologist. I never wanted to do that. Honestly, it wasn't fun. And because of that, a lot of the relationships that I built over time, with things with people relatives, they just pretty much disappeared when I was in high school because nobody would want to hang out with me. And my parents wouldn't want to, bring me around when they, went to visit the relatives. So that, we never really kind of learned how to deal with me, I guess, the proper way. And I think until a point when I actually started working on my business in college, I think until that point, we never really had that great of a relationship. But then only then, once I started actually doing something for myself, once I started making money with it, once I started traveling the world and, doing something that I loved and so on, then over time when I found something that I liked doing and I actually became a lot happier, that's when we kind of stopped fighting. We still don't really talk about business all that much and things like that because, it's hard to explain to them what I do exactly. But now I think we have a pretty good relationship. I think they didn't really know how to deal with me. And if I were in their shoes, if I were to try to deal with me better, I would say they probably would have needed to, find some things that I was really interested in and supported me in. But on the other hand, what they did is what they felt was right, which makes sense. So they felt you should study for all the subjects at school. Or they were you should, try to do some sports. So you should do badminton or something like that. So I practiced that professionally for 7 years and I hated it because I was bad at it. And no matter how much I practiced, I was still bad at it. But they kind of made me do it. So I know their intentions were always really, really good. But for me, I would say, it could have been different if they found out what I was really interested about and, they would support me in it. That only really happened when I found the thing that I was interested in, when I found the thing that I was good at, which was business. Then they kind of we started getting along more. Not a really great answer, but that's pretty much how it was. That's the honest truth.
That's fine. So what happens after high school? You went to college, correct? How did that
Yeah,
go?
so I had to repeat the last year of high school, which sucked because that meant like, I had to go and connect with with a new class, with new schoolmates, and I was kind of like an outcast. And also the people, at the high school knew that I was super smart, and I was one of the top students in some subjects, but then again, like I think a lot of the teachers were kind of like ashamed of me and they didn't want to talk to me, and it wasn't fun. And then also I tend to be pretty socially awkward, or I tended to be in the past. So that also wasn't fun, going through that last year of high school. But then somehow, I made it through. I passed just barely. I think like I passed by 1 point in the sociology exam or whatever I had. Or I would have to, I think, I don't know, repeat again. I don't even know what would happen. So I did manage to graduate. I went to, what was it? So I went to this university for computer science. I enrolled in there, and I don't know, I just had periods of time when I said like, oh, I want to be really good at this. I want to become a great programmer. I'm going to go to all of the classes. And I had other times when I just wanted to do the bare minimum. And I think I did actually pretty good at university. Like whenever I did study, whenever I did, put in an effort into something, I did pretty well. I passed the exams, passed most of them. But on the other hand, I saw that I really didn't have the potential to be like really, really good at it. Because I always felt stupid when the other kids, the other people, the other students were just like so much smarter than me or better programmers. I felt like I needed a whole year to learn as much as somebody else would learn in like 2 weeks or so. So that was demotivating. And that's kind of like how I started figuring out that that's not what I ultimately wanted to do. Because the main reason I went to study computer science was because I played video games. And I thought like, well, this is kind of like the same thing. You're on the computer. And then I realized it wasn't really the same thing, and it wasn't as much fun as I would have wanted it to be. So, yeah, went to college. Luckily, I think it was in my second year of college that I, took an online course from Ramit Sethi, who's our mutual mentor. So that's when I started learning about freelancing, and later I started my own online business. And I quit university in the last year when I had like 5 exams to go. And the main reason for that was that, I was starting to build my online business. I was starting to make some money. And at a certain point, I was just thinking like, I'm making a decent amount of money. I'm talking about productivity, which I actually love talking about. Finally found one thing that I'm excited about. And then, at university, they tried to teach me about entrepreneurship and things like that. And they wanted me to create these business plans and things like that. And it was again a thing that I felt was stupid, that I didn't want to do. So I was just like, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to drop out of university because I don't think it's, I'm already running a successful business and making more money than my professors. So why should I be creating these stupid business plans when that's not really how you start or run a business, nowadays? So I kind of dropped out of there. And my parents, I thought they would freak out, and my mom kind of did. Still, like, till this day, there's sometimes she's just like, well, what if you just finished your last few exams or something like that, which is fun for me. But I of course, like, it made no sense for me to do it because, like, I had these big business opportunities coming out. I would travel to the States. I would learn. I would, grow my business. And I just didn't have the time to do that if I wanted to also study and go to the university. And there was just so much negative energy that I had whenever I had to, learn the things that I really didn't want to do or that I wasn't great at. So I never ended up finishing that. I had a conversation with my parents, and I basically told them, like, look, I decided to stop going to university. I've been doing this business thing. You guys thought I was going to university, and I was. But I was also, renting an office, and I was doing this productivity coaching thing, and I'm making a decent amount of money, and I just want to give this a shot and not worry so much about university for a year or so. And then I want to see how it goes. And then if it goes badly, I'll go back to university. If it goes well, I'll just keep doing that. So yeah, my mom was very sad. She was crying. She was like, don't do this, But my dad, in a weird way, he was very supportive. He was just like, if that's what you want to do, I support you in it. But yeah, that's pretty much how that happened. And, it was hard for the first few months for sure, because my mom was constantly keep telling me to go back to university. But then I think over time, as they saw how much happier I was, as I started traveling more, as they could see that, I really liked the things I was doing, as I moved out into my own apartment and things like that, I think they kind of like became okay with it and started just, supporting me at what I did.
So what was the first business that you started while you were in college?
So yeah, at that point I was just teaching professional online poker players how to become more productive. Because, as I started reading more about business, I realized how big the productivity thing is. And, I started realizing that, why I wasn't productive, why I struggled with things like that. And I was able to, fix them to a certain extent. And I saw how important productivity was in business. And I also used to play some poker online in the past. So I was like, well, nobody's teaching online poker players how to become more productive. Maybe I should be the person teaching them, and let's just see what happens. And then somehow that business, pretty much blew up overnight. So that was my first business idea.
And what were the things that you were struggling with yourself with productivity at that point that you learned to overcome?
Well, there was a lot of stuff. I mean, I had no idea about productivity before that, right? So I had no idea about having a vision, having goals, having any kind of systems, having to-do lists, like even the basic stuff that it's very basic to me. It was like opening a new world at that time. It's like in school, they don't teach you how to, create productivity systems. They don't teach you how to focus on one task. They don't teach you how to learn faster. They don't teach you about mindfulness, about speed reading, about, recovery, about how, food influences how you feel, your energy levels, rest, sleep. Nobody in Slovenia in high school or in primary school or ever, really talks about these things. So I struggled with a lot. I mean, from nutrition to taking breaks to staying focused, being distracted, to not having any kind of structure, not writing things down, like, pretty much anything that you can think about in terms of productivity, from procrastination to lack of direction, anything. I was probably struggling with all of that.
So what advice would you give to people to be more productive now?
Right now?
Yes. Well, from your lessons, like, in other words, you were teaching productivity. So what was it that you were, like, what were the biggest insights you were providing people at that point?
I mean, like, for me, when I understand a topic really well, so let's say when I read 5 or 10 books about a topic, it just becomes second nature to me if I'm interested in it. So, I mean, with most of the people, like with poker players, it was really basic stuff. It was just like, how do we develop a vision for you? Where do you want to be? How do we set good goals? How do we allow you to stay more focused when you play? How do we make sure that you have enough energy when you're playing so you are actually focused? How do we turn off the distractions? How do we actually schedule your poker sessions and then learning time and things like that? That's what we worked on at the time. I mean, what I would tell now someone who's struggling with productivity, honestly, like, there's no quick fix. Like, I would just say read 10, 15, 20 different books about productivity. That's where you start. Like, that's how I started. If you want to like really master your productivity, it's not like one technique that's going to help you. You just got to learn all of it. Like, there's great books out there like Getting Things Done. That's a great book to get started. Or 7 Habits of Highly Effective People from Stephen Covey, or, Brian Tracy, Eat That Frog. There's probably, 10, 15 other books. Like, if you really want to get good at productivity, start reading everything about it and then putting it to action. Like, that's really it.
Taking action is definitely a big step. And it's one that a lot of people, unfortunately, don't do. They read a lot and then they don't put things into action, which is a shame. So you had this business, and what happened next?
Well, I mean, I ran that business for a while. I became pretty successful at it. I mean, I did write my ultimate guide to, skyrocketing your poker productivity, which has over time got more than, I think, 300,000 views. It was translated into 7 languages. I started recording some videos that I think were also seen by over 100,000 people. I started recording videos for an educational website. I started doing webinars, things like that. I did a lot of one-on-one coaching with, online poker players, all that kind of stuff. I did that for, I don't know how many years exactly, probably like 2 years or so. And then I realized that that's just not what I wanted to do. It's like, it was fun, the money was good, it just didn't feel like that's what whenever I would talk to someone, let's say I met some of the old people from high school, or if I want to talk to my parents or somebody, it's like, and I would talk about my business, it would always just be like, whenever they would hear poker, they would say, oh, so you're a gambler. And that's when the conversation kind of like ended, unless I wanted to go and, like explain myself for 3 hours, which never changed their opinions anyway. I just didn't like it. It was like, I'm making a lot of money and that's fine, but it's not fulfilling for me to teach to teach people how they can take money from other people. Like, that's not really creating an impact in the world. It's helping a few people make more money, but it's not really something I want to be remembered for. It's not impactful. It's not meaningful to me, to work with these people. And a lot of them were great people, but I could just see, like they were taking money from other people and, not really giving them anything back in return. So as I started meeting more and more people in the United States, I realized, I want to become, an entrepreneur. I want to, like have speeches at conferences and things like that. I want to create something, and I want to run a business that I would actually be proud of, that I could talk about, that was meaningful to me. And at that point, I just said like, well, I've been doing this thing for a while. Why don't I, see if I can teach other people about productivity, not just poker players. So that's how my website started. At the time it was called skyrocketyyourproductivity.com. And I just started teaching other entrepreneurs and executives how to become more productive, and just transitioned into that niche, started creating some online courses, things like that. And mostly just, it was through Ramit Sethi's Zero to Launch course. That's how I learned everything about creating an online business at the time. And I was like, well, let's do this thing. Let's see if this brings me to where I want to be.
And was it easy?
I mean, there's always things that come easy and there's always things that don't come easy. Like, I think you can't say whether it was easy or not, because there's just times when things go wrong. There's times when you're broke. There's times when you spend all your money on a conference or something like that. There's times when you're not getting clients, when you want to be getting clients. There's times when, you make a mistake with a client or something like that. There's times when you have to really push yourself out of your comfort zone, get a lot of rejections, write to people, never hear from them. So there's a lot of things that are hard about building an online business, right? And that's why I guess most people don't do it. And even from the people that do it, from the people that, do join online courses, that do start an online business, only a fraction of them succeed, because like it gets hard. And then when it gets hard, people give up. So there were definitely times when they were hard. But for myself, I never thought about giving up. It was never an option for me to give up on something. It was just like, well, life sucks right now, but I'll figure this out. I'll find a way to work through it. And I always did. So, on one hand, it was hard. On the other hand, there were definitely times when it was easy. It's definitely easier for me to, just have this interview right now than it would be for me to work in a full-time job or something like that, doing something I don't really enjoy doing. So, doing things like writing or, doing interviews and, helping people, coaching people, things like that always came easy to me. So that part of it was easy. I will say it was simple. Like, building an online business is not complicated. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty simple, but that doesn't make it easy, right? So there's times when it's easy. There's times when it's hard. The most important thing is really to just, like a lot of people say this, but they do it because it's true. It's just like, you got to keep showing up. You got to keep showing up for the, hard times, from the times when things go good, when they don't go so good. You always just got to keep showing up. And, that's what I did. I never gave up on my business. It changed a couple of times, but I always kept moving. I never wanted to just give up and get a full-time job. It's like, that was never an option for me.
So let's just talk a little bit about the success. You came out with the website and you created a course and you offered that course out. How were sales in the beginning for that course?
Well, it took a while for me to make money with the new business, right? Because every time you start something from scratch, like, yeah, there's, the overnight success stories. And some people would consider me one of them, but I'll tell you, it was definitely not an overnight success. Like, if I share the exact numbers, in the first year, let's say I started my website like in December, Then in April, I first sold one of my courses, and I made like $350. Or that was actually in March. So in March, I made $350. Then launched it again in April, and I made $1,600, which was better for sure. And then I launched it again, I think in August or so. I think I made $4,000 at that point. And I had another launch in like November and made like $2,000, $3,000. And then only, I think, maybe after another year or so, I would start seeing some bigger numbers, like a $20,000 product launch or something like that. So honestly, it took a while for me to build up the revenues that I had from the previous business that was safe, right? People already wanted to work with me from the poker world. But at that point, there was a point in when I started focusing on my business when I said, like, I'm not taking any new clients, for the poker stuff, and I'm just going to focus on that. And that was like a hard time for me because, like I spent all this time working, I spent 3 months working on my business and made $350. Like that's not a lot of money since I was charging almost as much money per hour for, poker coaching. So yeah, it was a transition time, but then slowly as I built up the revenues from that, yeah, things definitely started looking a bit better over time. But it was just a lot of work. It was a lot of consistent effort, like a product launch, if you guys have ever done it, it's a lot of work. So, even if when it was like a $4,000 product launch, it wasn't like I made money overnight. There was always a lot of work involved in it.
And in between those different product launches, were you changing the product or were you just relaunching the same product over and over again?
I mean, the product got updated. Like with, with online business, usually like it's a good idea to, listen to the feedback from your customers and then update it in the future. So we did update the product. We made it better. We expanded it. We added some, additional interviews to it, additional worksheets, things like that. But then once the product was good enough at that time for me, we didn't really bother with updating it any further. I just relaunched it each time. And I basically rewrote the whole sales sequence each time, right? So I would, include different success stories. I would include different tips, things like that. But the product didn't really change, like I think I updated it twice and then I didn't keep changing it anymore.
All right. And how long ago was this? This was
probably like I think it was 2014 or something like that. Yeah, it was for 2014.
Okay. And then at some point you went to work with Ramit, correct?
Yeah, I went to work with Ramit. I think it was December 2014. And then I worked with Ramit's company for 2 years and 1 week. So until December 2016.
So what was that experience like?
That was awesome. That was a once in a lifetime experience for sure. To be able to work with someone who who has first of all taught me everything I knew at the time about building an online business. Someone I really admired, somebody who was already running, a multi-7-figure online business. That was an incredible experience. Like, honestly, if I went back and, had to make this decision over, again, which at that point it was, do I want to keep growing my online business, which was taking off and I was making more and more money with? Do I want to keep doing that? Or, do I want to go and work with Ramit as a contractor, full time to develop one of his programs for him, work on it full time, which would mean that I wouldn't be able to really focus on my online business anymore as much. And it would probably also mean I would make less money than I would make on my own. But, making that decision, if you ask me right now, I would always say, like, I do it over and over again. It's like the amount of work that, the amount of things that you can learn from somebody who's the best in the world, or one of the best people in the world at what they do, just like, working with the company, going on the weekly team calls, having one-on-one conversations, having group conversations with Ramit, meeting him in person, and so on and so on. Like, it changed me completely as a person. People said that, my copy improved as I started writing more. But for me, it's like I learned one thing from Ramit that I couldn't really learn from my parents, even though I feel like that's something that they could have taught me. It was like being excellent at whatever you do, like really pursuing excellence and really becoming the best in the world at something. And that's actually something that I see in my dad. Like, he strives to be that, right? He strives to be that person. So yeah, that's something I never really had before. Didn't really have that concept before. I kind of like wanted to become the best in the world at things. I like the top sportsmen and things like that, but I didn't really know how to get there. And that's something that I learned from Ramit. It's like, how do you actually become really freaking good at something? Like, how do you develop really good online courses, or how do you become the top expert in the industry and things like that? So yeah, it was an awesome experience working with a lot of smart people, learning about lot about business, about myself. It wasn't easy. Again, some parts of it were easy. Other parts, like having meetings at 9 p.m. on a Friday, they were not easy. I would rather be doing other stuff. But when you're doing something like that, with a company like that, of course you make the sacrifices. And there were definitely times when I sacrificed a lot of my time, and a lot of even the productivity rules that I set for myself, I would sacrifice to work with a company, because it was a United States-based company, and I was in Europe, which was like 6 to 9 hours ahead. So there were definitely times when I was working in the middle of the night or things like that to make things work. But again, I wouldn't change a thing. It was awesome.
So what was it that he taught you? What was the secret to becoming excellent at something?
I don't think there's a secret, or if there is a secret, it's as simple as going above and beyond in everything that you do. It's like, it's super simple, but it's really, really, really not easy. I think it's like with excellence, it just becomes a habit over time. If you see a lot of people that really try to make certain things really, really good, and you see they have really, really high standards about everything, then you kind of like start setting higher standards for yourself. It's like, in sports, right now, one of the things that I do is I train powerlifting, and I'm competing at the nationals this year, and I hope to win a medal actually. And as I'm training, as I'm preparing, I try to train a lot with the people who already are national champions and some of the best powerlifters in Slovenia. And just observing them, how they train, how they show up for practices, how focused they are, how they don't skip exercises, how they have their sleep on point, nutrition on point, all of those things, how they don't reschedule their workouts, how they're there, and they're working hard, and how they're focused on, improving their technique. All of those things, there's no secret. Like, you just go there and see people do it. But it's just like, putting in a lot more work than everybody else, and really just going above and beyond and making sure, you make the right sacrifices to make that happen. Another example is when I was creating my online course, which is called The Ultimate Guide System. Just last week, we've closed the launch of the Ultimate Guide System 2.0. So Ultimate Guide System, it's an online course that I've launched a few months ago on creating ultimate guides. And how I used what I learned from Ramit was that, first of all, I did a lot of research for that course. So it took me like 3 months of research just to launch the course and create the course for the first time. Basically talked to everybody that I knew about ultimate guides. If they wanted to create one, I would talk to people when I met them in person. I would talk to people when I would travel. I would do office hours online and help people for free with ultimate guides. Then I would get 7 one-on-one coaching clients on ultimate guides. My goal was to create a system for ultimate guides that actually works, that has no holes, that anyone can go through, create an ultimate guide, get more traffic, email subscribers, and sales for their online business, and also establish themselves as the expert in their industry. In order to develop that, first of all, I had to have a lot of conversations with people, and then I had to refine the process step by step to make it into something that people could actually go through and not get stuck on it. Because I knew my process for developing ultimate guides, but I had to tweak that process to make it easy for other people to do it too, right? So we launched that course in March. We ran the program for 3 months or so. And then I just kept getting feedback from people. And I always kept looking at where they got stuck, what went well, what didn't go well, and so on and so on. I always kept an eye open to basically notice, if there's some things that I could improve, and I would take notes. After 3 months, I was like, okay, so the program is already awesome, which is great, but I know I can make it better. That's something that I wouldn't probably ask myself in the past. I wouldn't ask myself before working on Ramit. It's like, how do I make this program 10 times better? Probably just with my first course that I created a course and I made it better because I wanted to sell it for more money and because I got a cool idea on how to make it better. But I wasn't constantly thinking, are people following through with this course? Are they actually finishing it? How do I make sure that everybody who's in the course actually finishes it? And so on and so on. And asking all of those questions, which is unfortunately what most people in the online business world, don't do. That's what actually got us a really high success rate with Ultimate Guide System. Like right now, as I said, we launched it for the first time 3 months ago. It ended up becoming a 14-week course. And what's interesting is we had like 32 students join the program. 16 or I think even 18 of those 32 students have either finished writing their Ultimate Guides or they're almost done with writing them, which is something that you just don't see in many online courses nowadays, or almost none of the online courses. And how that happened was I didn't just create an online course, make money with it and move on. I said, okay, we created this course, and I told all of my students when they joined, like, hey guys, so I'm glad you joined this program. Now my main goal is to make you guys successful. I'm going to do whatever it takes to help you get there. So I help them through the community. We have this chat-based community, so I'd always answer their questions. I would give them feedback on their guides. If we needed to jump on a one-on-one call, I would jump on a one-on-one call with them. I wouldn't charge them for it, and so on and so on. And I really put them in the center. All of that, asking them for feedback, helping them out, going above and beyond for them, and so on and so on. All of those things together are helping me create a really excellent online course. Right now, it's July. We've launched Ultimate Guide System 2.0. I can honestly say, that we've been developing this product probably since December or maybe even a bit earlier. So it's already taken 6, 7, 8 months of research and refinement and so on to create an online course that's really, really good. So that's something that you can only learn by working with someone who's doing the same thing. Because if you told me 2 years ago, and Ramit does say in his online courses, we spend 6 months or maybe even up to a year or 2 years developing our online courses. If you told me that, I would say, well, that's great for Ramit, but how do I do it? What do I even do for 6 months? I don't understand, right? And now I can actually see these things, and it's like, it becomes clear to me. So I know when I train for powerlifting, I know to always improve on the weaknesses that I have, do the extra exercises. With the courses that I create, I always look about how do I make sure there's no holes in there, that it actually works. Always think about how to make it 10 times better. With the blog posts or with the Ultimate Guides that I write, I always think about how to make it 10 times better than anything else out there in the industry. As you can see, these are very simple questions. There's no secret. It's just asking yourself that question over and over again, writing down those ideas and then executing on them. That's what it really is. It's a lot of hard work. It can be monotone. It can be boring to some people, but I just love doing it. There's no simple way to explain this, but it's like you just got to go above and beyond. You got to go above and beyond, push your own limits, push the limits of what you can do for your readers, for your customers. Over time, as you do it consistently for months and months, years and years, that's how you slowly but surely achieve greatness, achieve excellence, and so on and so on.
And I think a lot of the things that you're talking about apply to life as well. You surrounded yourself with people who are doing work at a very high level. When you're in that type of a group, you also tend to bring yourself up, but you've got to work harder to stay within that group. You've had a lot of great mentors as well who help to pull you up as well. And same thing with powerlifting. You're finding the experts in that area and having them pull you up and teach you and mentor you as well. Do you have a coach or coaches?
I have mentors and I have coaches. Recently started working with a high performance coach. His name is Alon Kakshuri. He's been the manager of 3 number 1 tennis players in the world. So he's coaching me right now on high performance. I have other business mentors that I go for advice and so on and so on. I think the most important thing really is to get help with whatever you want to accomplish. For example, in powerlifting, I have 3 personal trainers and they all teach me different things. And I drive, 30 minutes one way and then back twice a week to work with one trainer that's really good at one thing. And then I drive to different locations to work with other people. In business, I can say I had luck or something like that. I don't think it was luck, but I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by really good mentors. I didn't work my ass off for it, but I'm honored to work with people like or learn from people like Selena Su and Ramit Sethi and Derek Halpern and other people. Those are the people I turn to for help. I don't really have a dedicated coach that would coach me on business like every week, but I do have a lot of friends that are on my level or on a higher level in business than me that I go to for advice. I think our mutual friend, Mark Aarons, he's one of the people that I go to for advice a lot on business whenever I'm stuck and I don't know what to do. Sometimes when I really get stuck, I would reach out to people like Selena Su and Derek and Ramit. I think you just have to find one way to really, get help, whether it's online courses. I do buy a shitload of online courses. That's what I do buy. Whether you get a coach, whether you get a mentor, doesn't really matter, but you do have to invest in yourself. You do have to invest the time, you do have to invest the money, and you do have to, learn from the people who are the best at what they do, be willing to, make big investments and so on and so on. I think all that is very important.
And how were you able to have so many mentors who help you out? How are you able to make those connections? That's not easy to do.
Well, to me, it was easy, but it's probably not easy for other people, right? The way that I build relationships, and I write about it in my quick guide to surrounding yourself with successful people on my website, it's just with these online entrepreneurs. I've just taken their online courses, taken their advice, went way above and beyond in implementing it, and then I also went way above and beyond in sharing the results with them. Most people that take online courses nowadays, most people never finish them. And I don't know whose fault is that. Is that the fault of the creators or the people who go for them? I don't know. Let's say if 100 people join an online course, then let's say 90 people won't finish the online course, so they won't get any results with it, right? So 10 out of 100 people maybe will finish the course eventually. Out of those 10 people, probably 8 of them, they won't let the person know about the results because they're like, oh, maybe my result is too small. Oh, maybe that person's too busy, or whatever reason. Most people don't even let these people know about the results. There's a small part of people that actually do talk about results. Some people just say like, oh, I love this course and I made $2,000 with it and you're awesome. It's great, but it's not really going above and beyond for them. It doesn't show how these people change their lives, and it doesn't really give anything to the person that they could use in their sales copy, or it makes them feel okay, but it's not really life-changing if somebody just says like, oh, I made this and that's it. Usually what I would do is I would just go way above and beyond for all these people without asking for anything in return. With Ramit, I would create these video testimonials for him, or I would write this really long and detailed review of his Zero to Launch course. Or with Selena Su, the situation was that she was looking for some help with one of her sales emails for a product launch she was doing. And at the time, I had a lot of experience already with things like emails. So I was like, well, maybe I can offer you some ideas. And then most people would just leave these comments on her email where she was asking for feedback. There's a lot of comments. Some of them are good. Some of them are not as good. So what I did is I understood that Selena was busy and I really wanted to make it as easy as possible for her to actually use this email in her product launch. So I went through all the comments, took the feedback, added some of my own feedback, and then basically rewrote the email for her, incorporating all of the feedback. And I just sent that to her and I was like, hey, I thought you would appreciate it. And that really made me stand out from everybody else. So it's really all about standing out, going above and beyond for people. Instead of spending 2 hours writing a review of the course, spending a week writing it, adding screenshots of revenue, adding specific lessons that I learned from the course, and so on and so on. If you go and look at my website, primožbožić.com, you'll see that anything I do tries to go above and beyond, whether it's like the free guides that you get when you sign up to my email list, whether it's my ultimate guides that are on my website, whether it's blog posts. I always try to stand out and go way above and beyond what everybody else does. The honest truth is not many people do that. Not many people even think about doing it. Out of those people that think about doing it, not many of them are actually willing to put in the work. For a long time, I was wondering, why the hell would someone like Ramit or Derek or Selena want to hang out with me? Now, as I'm moving up the chain in the online business world, I'm realizing why, because there's just not that many people who have the same mindset about things, There's just not that many people who really want to be the best in the world at something and are also willing to do the work and are also, they want to help people, they want to give, and so on and so on. There's really not that many people out there like that. It's also interesting for me because now I'm trying to surround myself with people who are better than me and who want to become the best in the world at something. And that might not resonate with everybody, but that's where I want to. I want to become the best in the world at what I do. It's freaking hard to find people like you. Like here in Slovenia, it's hard to find them. Even in the online communities, in the online world, there's a lot of really successful people out there, but the people who really want to become the best of the best, there's really so few of them. And then when, an influencer or, like a really important person that you get in touch with sees themselves in you, that's when they want to start a conversation with you. There's nothing you can do about it. There's no way you can trick people. You can send people articles or links to things all day long, but that's not going to help you build an authentic relationship with them. I think mentorships and things like that, I never looked for these mentors. They just kind of like came to me when they noticed me that I was doing the work, I was doing great things, I was constantly trying to help other people. I always just gave, tried to help everybody I could. They noticed me and they took me under their wings and we started talking. That's really how it happened. I probably have to write up another post about mentors and things like that, but there's really no secret. It's just a lot of hard work without asking for anything in return, and just expressing a lot of gratitude and just sharing updates with people who you admire.
Absolutely, that's very correct. One of the things I wonder about, though, is I wonder what prevents people from, I guess they just don't want to do the work.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, doing the work, everybody has their own stuff to take care of. Most people probably nowadays, they have full-time jobs, right? And then they have their business on the side, and then they have maybe kids and they have a family. And it's not even that they don't want to do the work. It's not easy to do all of those things and try to start an online business and also try to build relationships with people and so on and so on. You just have to have some kind of a drive in you, and you have to really decide that you're going to make it no matter what it takes. I think just inherently there's very few of those people out there like that. And, people just don't do it consistently. There's so many people that I could have a great relationship with, even on my email list, that follow me, but I don't. And I think it's kind of their fault. It's not my fault because, it's up to them to build relationships with me. There's a lot of people that wrote me once and then never wrote me back again. And even if you write to me you've helped me so much, I've made $5,000 or I've connected with this influencer or something like that, I'm so grateful. That's awesome in the moment. But if they don't keep showing up, if they don't stay in touch with me, I'll just won't remember them anymore after 3, 6, 12 months. Or there's a lot of people who just want to get a lot of free information and they never want to invest into online courses. There's a lot of people that ask me for, free advice and ultimate guides, and they never, when I launch my online course, they just disappear. They don't join it in the end. I think a great way to build a relationship with someone is to invest into whatever they're offering. It was easier for me to build relationships with people like Ramit, for example, because I always invested in his stuff. I bought 5 or 6 of his online courses. I flew to San Francisco just to grab lunch with him and a couple of other people. I flew to New York multiple times just to attend a conference from him, and so on and so on. And it's not that I would have more money than most other people. I usually just spend all of my money that I had to go to a conference to New York, things like that. It was just the top priority for me. For most people, it probably isn't. And that's why they spend money on other things like their fancy car, their new TV, their restaurants, or just other things that are important to them. If you really want to build a relationship with someone, show them that you appreciate their work. Become their star student. Invest in causes that are important to them, and so on and so on and so on. It's just most people don't do that. I don't know. I don't know. It puzzles me because it's hard for me to understand, other people and how they function when they're very different from me. To me, this is natural. To me, it's natural that you buy online courses. To me, it's natural that you let people know how they helped you. To me, it's natural to become the best in the world at something. So if you ask me why don't most people do it, I'll honestly say I don't know, because we're so different in many, many ways. And I don't know, maybe they're overwhelmed. Like that's something that I can't really relate to because yeah, I'm overwhelmed sometimes, but I'm just not the type of person that would just sit still and be overwhelmed for 2 years and not do anything about it. It's just so very different. We're very different people. Maybe someone, who actually has gone through that and they completely change their lifestyle, they would probably know how or why that happens. But for me, it's just, I don't know. I don't know, honestly.
Taking action is a big thing. And if you don't take massive action, you're not going to have the life you want. And that's what people need to actually do is take the action. Just keep moving forward towards the goal. The reality is it compounds. The more you do, the faster it grows. And it does take time. I think people look at people and say, oh, it's an overnight success. Then they miss the 10,000 hours of work that was there prior to the success. And nobody talks about the fact that there's a lot of hard work that has to get done in order for you to be successful. You don't just show up and it's not just luck. There's a little luck involved, but there's a lot of hard work behind getting things done.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like if you have reasonable potential to become really good at something, and I say reasonable potential because I put a lot of work into becoming really good at badminton, and no matter how much I practiced, I still sucked. I still lost all the matches that I went to, and I practiced for 7 years. So there is something to be said about talent. There is something to be said about having potential to be really good at something, having predispositions or something like that. But then once you find something that you love the struggle, you love doing it, you love improving at it, if you just keep working on yourself, every day, you're going to get better at it. There's no other way. It's just that, most people give up when things get hard, or they set these big goals and then they get, disappointed when they don't reach them overnight, and so on and so on. It's like my coach, Alan, he always says, people really overestimate how much they can get done over the short term, and they really underestimate how much they can get done over the long term. Things like building an online business or being successful in any part of your life, it's not going to happen in a week or even in a month. It usually just takes years. Most people give up before it takes years. Like for me, it took, 3 years to deadlift 500 pounds. Now people notice it and it's like, wow, that's a lot of weight. I'm like, yeah, that's a lot of workouts that went into it before I was able to do something like that. So yeah, I think you're right. It just takes time and most people give up. I think that's also fine. Sometimes it's fine to give up if you're not good at something. If I didn't give up on school, if I didn't give up on badminton, if I didn't give up on all the things that I wasn't good at, then you can't create the time and the energy for the things that you are good at. But make sure, whenever you're giving up, you're really giving up because you don't want to do something or you really think like you don't have potential, and not just because the things that get hard. Because when things get hard, you just have to, you can always talk to people around you that support you and stuff like that. But I never think about giving up. Like in powerlifting, I'm never going to think about giving up, or in business. It's just not an option for me to get a full-time job. That's not happening, like, ever again. It's like, I'll figure out a way to make money, even if I'm broke, even if my whole business falls apart, I will find a way to do what I want and do what I love. And I think most people they don't have that. Maybe they can learn how to do it, but yeah, I don't know.
Absolutely. People do struggle with that. So what's next for you?
Over the next few months, we're obviously working on the Ultimate Guide system. That's the thing that I spend most time on right now. It's like I just want to create an amazing course, continue having that 50% success rate, helping my students transform their businesses, become experts, get well known, and so on and so on. In the future, I don't know, probably a lot of writing, because that's something that I'm really good at, writing really detailed stuff like Ultimate Guides, really epic posts, things like that. So a lot more writing, and then putting myself out there more. I know there's a lot of people, out there who do, want to do something more, who do want to live this really exceptional lives, who want to create exceptional online courses, who want to build exceptional businesses, create exceptional content online. And I just want to help a lot of these people. So yeah, that's what I'm really focusing on right now. Just impacting as many people as possible with the work that I do. That's pretty much it.
Cool. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience today?
No, I think that's good. I mean, if you do want to learn more about me, then just subscribe to my email list. Like, that's the best way to reach me probably. Or, just read my blog at primožbožić.com. Hopefully there's going to be some kind of link there or something like that. That's pretty much it.
I will put a link in there so that people can click on it easily and find you. I encourage people to do that.
Awesome.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening today. Did you catch all the insights and work that Primoz does to create his ultimate life? You can find Primoz at primozbozic.com. primozbozic.com. It's in the show notes, where he helps people create an ultimate guide for their business. Primoz has surrounded himself with successful people who are helping to push him forward. What about you? Please reach out if I can be of help. It's Rocky at Richer Soul. Have an unbelievable week.